in a university classroom in California back in September 2023. The air was thick with tension. A young Filipino exchange student named Miguel, just 19 years old, stood at the front of the room. He had just finished his presentation. His American linguistics professor, a stern woman named Mrs. Davis, looked at him over her glasses. "Thank you, Miguel," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "But I must say, your Filipino English is quite broken. It lacks the sophistication of proper American English." The words hung in the air. The room fell into a dead silence. Miguel's classmates looked down, unsure where to direct their eyes. Miguel felt a hot flush of shame creep up his neck. His heart pounded in his chest. Broken all his life, he had been proud of his ability to speak English, a language that connected his home islands to the wider world. He felt every eye in the room on him, not with pity, but with a kind of awkward discomfort. Mrs. Davis just moved on to the next student, as if she hadn't just shattered a young man's confidence in front of everyone. Miguel wasn't just any student. He grew up in a small town in Cebu, where the sea was his backyard. His grandmother, his Lola, was a storyteller. She didn't just tell stories in their local dialect. She would weave in English words and phrases she'd learned from books and old movies. She taught him that language was a bridge, not a wall. She would say, "Anak, our words have the rhythm of the waves and the warmth of the sun. Never be ashamed of it." Miguel's dream was to become an international journalist, to tell Filipino stories to the world, in his own voice. So when Mrs. Davis called his English broken, it wasn't just an academic critique. It felt like she was calling his identity, his heritage, and his grandmother's legacy broken, too. It was a direct blow to the core of who he was and what he hoped to become. That night, Miguel couldn't sleep. The word broken echoed in his mind. He could have just let it go, accepted it as one person's harsh opinion. He could have tried to change his accent, to sound more American. But then he thought of his Lola's proud smile. He thought of all the other Filipinos around the world who navigate different cultures with their unique, beautiful blend of English. And a fire lit inside him. He decided he would stay quiet. He wouldn't let that insult stand. The next day, he saw a flyer for the university's annual oratorical competition. The theme was bridging cultures through language. It was perfect. This was his chance. He immediately went to his friends, a group of international students who understood his struggle. He told them his plan. His best friend, a student from Korea named Ji-hoon, put a hand on his shoulder and said, "She picked the wrong person to mess with. Man, your voice is your power. Let them hear it." That was all the encouragement Miguel needed. He signed up for the competition. That very afternoon, the next few weeks were a blur of intense preparation. Miguel spent hours in the library, not just researching his speech, but studying the speeches of great orators. He wasn't trying to copy them. He was trying to find his own rhythm, his own fire. He recorded himself over and over, listening to the playback, not to fix his accent, but to perfect his message. He practiced in front of his friends, who gave him unwavering support. There were moments of doubt, of course. He'd hear Mrs. Davis's voice in his head, whispering broken, and he'd stumble over his words. But then he'd look at a photo of his Lola on his phone. He remembered this was bigger than just him. This was for every person who had ever been made to feel that their way of speaking, their way of being, wasn't good enough. This was for the Philippines. The night of the oratorical competition arrived. The auditorium was packed. Students, faculty, and judges filled the seats. Miguel, waiting backstage. Could feel his heart hammering against his ribs, and then he saw her. Mrs. Davis was sitting in the front row, right next to the judge's table, a pen and notepad in her hand, an impassive look on her face. It was his turn. He walked onto the stage, the spotlight blinding him for a second. He took a deep breath, found his friends in the crowd, and began. He didn't talk about linguistics or grammar. He told a story. He spoke of his grandmother and the sea. He described the vibrant, multilingual world of the Philippines, where English wasn't a foreign language to be mastered, but a shared language to be owned, shaped, and celebrated. He spoke with a passion that silenced the room. His voice didn't waver. It was clear, powerful, and authentic. It was uniquely his. He ended his speech with, "My English is not broken. It is built. It is built on the stories of my ancestors, the dreams of my people, and the bridges we build to connect with all of you. It is whole." For a moment after he finished, there was absolute silence. Not the awkward silence from the classroom, but a stunned, breathless silence. Then, a single person started clapping. Then another and another, until the entire auditorium erupted in a roaring standing ovation. People were on their feet, cheering, some with tears in their eyes. Miguel looked at the judges, who were smiling and nodding, their pens down. Then, his eyes found Mrs. Davis. Her face was a mask of disbelief. The smug, condescending look was gone, replaced by pure shock. The applause continued for what felt like an eternity. As Miguel walked off the stage, past the judge's table, Mrs. Davis stood up. He thought she was going to argue or critique him again. Instead, in front of everyone, she looked him straight in the eye, and her own eyes were glistening. "I was wrong," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but clear in the quieting hall. "Your English isn't broken. It's beautiful. I am so sorry." She reached out her hand, not for a formal handshake, but she placed it on his arm in a gesture of sincere respect. It was a humbling moment, witnessed by the entire university community. Of course, Miguel won the competition, but that wasn't the real victory. The real win was what happened next. His speech was recorded and uploaded to the university's YouTube channel. It went viral, hitting over 5 million views in a week. He received messages from Filipinos and people from all over the world, sharing their own stories of linguistic pride. The university offered him a scholarship to continue his journalism studies. And Mrs. Davis, she completely changed her teaching curriculum. She introduced a new module on world Englishes, celebrating the diversity of the language, and she often used Miguel's speech as the prime example. This story celebrates the unbreakable Filipino spirit. It shows that our identity is our strength. The lesson here is that there is no single correct way to speak a language. Authenticity and passion are what truly connect us. Filipino English is not a lesser version. It's a powerful, vibrant, and proud expression of a rich and beautiful culture. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire.